All right, another episode.
So is that really her or is this Zoom?
No, this is really Joan St.
It's me.
Because we did a very modern thing. We had a Zoom.
We had a Zoom show, but this is our guest in person, Joan St.
She looks in person.
She's in person. You are Jackie the Jack.
God,
See, we can't edit. We can't edit. So every time he muffs, no offense, every time he muffs something, it stays in.
You are Jackie the Joke Man Martin.
And you are the Bales.
I am Peter Bales. And
Party
this
of
is
two.
Another
Sorry.
episode of Stand Up Memories.
I can't believe you didn't plug your stupid comedy
class.
contest.
Well, no, stop. We're here
plug
with...
your comedy show.
We don't have to plug my comedy class, standupuniversity.com. We don't have to do that. We have...
That's out of the way.
Let's get our guest on this show. We're so lucky to have her. Her name is Joan St. Onge.
Dear friend for many, many moons.
We've known her for a long time. She's terrific. And she is an actress. And she's a stand-up and an expert. And I do mean an expert.
She is multifaceted.
And she has huge experience and insight into improvisation, which we should address more on this show. Now, Joan,
Correct. Yes.
welcome.
Oh, thank you. And just as I sip my coffee, you go, welcome.
What,
'cause I
what should
thought,
we address more?
Well, this show is stand-up memories, and Joan, I know, has a lot of memories of stand-up.
yes.
And I'll ask you now, what do you find more rewarding? Stand-up, hitting the clubs, hitting those crowds, or now do you find acting more
Well,
rewarding?
first of all, thank you for having me. That's very lovely. And the
We love
coffee's
you.
great.
We love you.
I don't do stand-up anymore.
I know.
So acting is, okay, here's the story. I was an actress in Denver, and I got my actor's equity card. So, and then I found out I couldn't work anymore because I'm in actor's equity, and I can only do equity theater. That's when I went into stand-up.
It actually really limits what you can do.
Oh, you can only work equity houses. And there was
so-
one theater in Denver, so I kind of screwed myself in that way. But
That's interesting.
so I couldn't do any theater, but I could do stand-up and I could do improv.
Okay. Now, you started stand-up in Denver?
Yes,
And when did you come to Long Island?
1984.
All right. And
Were you chasing comedy? Were you chasing a guy? Were you chasing...
Here's why I came. Because I was here on vacation and I got a part in a movie.
you did?
Yes. And moved to Long Island. And that movie was
Ryder
Ryder P.I.
Now, how did you... I couldn't even get
Let me
in that
explain
movie.
to the audience what's going on here. Ryder P.I. was a movie by a local Long Island producer named Carl Hosh.
Carl
Carl
Hosh.
Carl Hosh. And
It is
all
Hosh. I'm telling you, it was Carl Hosh and the other guy
Chuck Walker.
who is a mentalist, I heard.
Yes.
Oh.
Now,
Back then
Oh,
he was a mental
my.
case.
this movie was fun. I was not in it. I was probably the only one not in it.
What? Were you in it?
I was not in it till the very, very, very
I
last
was
because
like-
I was ready to kill somebody. So they made me the voice of the machine that's on the refrigerator, so that when the fat girl goes to the refrigerator and opens it up to get food, I insult her. And I'm
Well,
not even sure I ever saw it.
I played a transvestite who Dave Hawthorne hits on and then punches me in the mouth
How
when
did
he
you
fights me.
so did you come to town and
I was
join
here in the summertime.
and you did the improv?
And I didn't do the improv. I just auditioned for this movie because I was dating at the time Jack Simmons. God bless his soul.
Jack Simmons,
Did he die?
a terrific
Yeah, he died.
comedian.
He
terrific
died last year.
comedian who passed away
Yes.
recently, and he was really, really great. Now,
Yeah.
okay, so you're here on Long Island. You're doing this. The point is, it was a local ridiculous.
It
movie.
was a very stupid movie. But
every
my friends
comedian-
in Denver didn't know that because I was just in New York.
Yes, and doing a movie.
I auditioned
You know,
and they
that's
asked
the
me.
thing. If there's no subheading, I was in a movie. I did a movie. Nobody has to know anything else.
Well, my relatives in South Dakota think I'm a Broadway actress. And I say, no, I'm a New York actress. And my cousin goes, Doesn't matter.
Actually,
Okay.
the first movie I did in the 80s, the only way you could see it was in Times Square, and you had to have tokens. Now,
Did the panel
yes,
come
the
up
panel
and,
went
and
up
down?
and then
Yes.
it went down, depending on how many tokens you
I am not
had.
ashamed to say I actually went to that place more than once, and
Gee, I don't know why you'd be ashamed.
Why
not,
you'd want
not
to
even a
admit
little,
that.
not even a little
Now,
ashamed.
Yes.
Joan, you
Now wait,
became-
now the Ryder P.I. I've told
Ryder
the story
P.I.
before,
Okay.
but I'm going to tell it again. Jim Myers was in that movie.
Yes.
And so was his 7.
He was the bartender, and I was in
Well,
that
I don't
scene.
remember the movie well enough, but his 7-year-old son was in it. And he said, you know what? When am I going to be in a movie with my kid? I'm going to rent a limo. And meanwhile, it wasn't at a theater. It was like in a little multiplex
yeah,
12 or
yeah.
something.
I don't think I even
he
went
goes
to the
by
opening.
limo with his kid, and he said to me, it was worth renting the limo because the movie was so bad. It was worth renting the limo so we had tinted windows on his way.
So it was so bad, but I knew it because I've been an actress. I did a lot of commercials. I did a lot of film in Denver. And then they go, and I come in and I go, okay, where's the makeup? And they go, makeup. Wardrobe, you got to bring your own clothes. And I was like, what?
We're filming
I
at
love
Charlie's
it.
house today.
Yeah, true.
I love it. But you soon ended up a fixture at the legendary, here on Long Island, East Side Comedy
Yes,
Club.
yes.
And you got into stand-up.
Actually, I was in stand-up. I traveled around the world, the Southwest. But I went, I did improv because I knew Dave and Bob through that movie.
Dave Hawthorne, Bob
Oh,
Nelson,
so
a couple
that was your intro.
Long
into
Island.
it.
And Rosie O'Donnell
Rosie.
just left.
Rosie O'Donnell.
And they needed a woman to fill in so they could bend over and
for
pretend to
an
fuck her.
But
improv
Nancy, my
group called
future
the-
ex-wife, was in that group too.
called the Laughter
did
Company.
not see her in that group.
Well, which
Nancy?
improv group was she in?
Rosie was in the Laughter
Nancy.
Company. Oh, Nancy.
She was
She
not
was
in
some-
Laughter Company.
It wasn't Laughter
No, it
Company?
wasn't the Laughter Company.
She was
I'm
in
not
one
sure.
of those groups. I don't know.
That could have been a story just for her to get out.
Right. Maybe you should have her here. She's a great entertainer. Oh, anyway.
She's great.
Tell, a lot of comedians watch our podcast.
Oh.
And new comedians. And tell them why improvisation is important for stand-ups and how the two are close cousins. And
Oh.
it really
Well,
does make a difference.
improvisation, and I did, even though I was an actor, I did comedy improvisation, and I really wanted to emphasize that because I wasn't like, let's get into the I want
Yeah.
the punchlines. I want those
Right, I
punchlines.
understand.
So that's what I kind of grew up on, and when I came to New York and Long Island, and working with those guys were great, but they were all sketches at that
Right,
time.
right.
They were all sketches, so
So
I
they
was.
didn't have their eye on
They didn't
the
have
punchline.
I would come in and go, doctor, the patient is ready, and I would leave, and then they would do their sketches, and I
Okay.
was like, But I did it for a while, and then they became big. Both they were never there, so I was still at the improv going, and I think I did improv with you and
Zabrowski, maybe?
yeah, Joey Novick and
These are local
all the
comics,
all the
Long
comics
Island,
that
New Jersey.
would come in, and they had not you, but they had no training in improv.
Well, I was the director of the Laughter Company, and
Which I
I
did not
took
know.
workshops at Second City. So we were doing improvs in order to create scenes, not
Sketches.
sitting down
Right,
at a typewriter.
right.
So, see, I never was really privy to any of this. So the Laughter Company was an improv group. It wasn't a training ground?
It was not a really improv group. It was more of a sketch comedy.
comedy
But
group.
it wasn't
like-
intended to be a learning situation? It was a,
No.
We're
no,
already
it was,
good and we're
no,
doing sketches?
it was Dave and
and Bob Nelson and Rosie
Bob
O'Donnell.
Nelson
and
and
we
Rosie
had-
and Vinnie Mark.
And Vinnie Mark. And we created, I was the director, and we created sketches through improv like they do.
That's like they do in Second City.
Okay, I left, and they never created another sketch again. And
Never
they became,
did.
And they became a group that does essentially improv games as entertainment for the audience,
Right.
which is a totally different animal.
Which I was trained in improv games to go up and freeze, boom, boom,
Boom,
boom,
right,
yeah,
right.
And so
You help me and help the audience.
Yes.
What is an improv game?
There are different things that you do to promote. So it's not scenes. It's not like we're in a
Right.
dentist's office. It's like give us a dentist's office and we'll create a scene through that rather than doing. Now, Second City, the way they work is they have the improvisation and they get a sketch from their improvisation and tone that sketch and then do it that night. So it's very sketchy, which is what
So they
did.
mold it to
They
the-
mold it to it. So I don't know if you ever see a bit like Dave Hawthorne would go, we need a place. Yeah, library. I heard dentist's office. And
Right,
he never
right.
heard dentist. But that's what Whose Line Anyway was
Yeah,
it? They did it.
yeah,
They
yeah.
filmed it 3 times.
When
just
I first started doing Stump the Joke Man, remember Kevin Sullivan was a guy who played
remember Kevin
guitar,
Sullivan,
and
yeah.
he used to play Stump the Band, and he'd say,
Yeah.
"Give me the name of somebody," and they couldn't believe that he had a song for whoever they yelled. But of course they're going to yell Springsteen. Of course
Yeah,
they're
they're
going to
gonna-
yell Beatles.
yeah,
Of course
but-
he's gonna
and
have a
Bob
song.
Dylan, and you could go,
But I would
"Hey."
say this is long before I started the 2 lines, set them up, knock them down, and say, "Give me a subject, and I'll give you a joke." And if somebody said, ball game, you baseball. But if somebody said, Italian dressing, I would say, okay, Italian meal.
Yeah,
you
right.
open the umbrella, so
Right.
there's
You
a
are-
lot more underneath it.
A lot
you
of
know?
people don't know that Jackie Marling is the Maury Amsterdam of our generation.
A reference to the Dick Van Dyke Show of the 1960s, and a great reference.
And I know you don't know this, but that was literally, in my life, Maury, you told dirty jokes from the time I was two inches
Oh, yeah.
tall.
They
dirty
pretty much
jokes,
loved it,
jokes,
yeah.
jokes, dirty jokes. And Maury Amsterdam was on The Tonight Show. And Carson said to him, so, Maury, supposedly you got a joke on anything. And Maury Amsterdam said, give me a subject. I remember this like it was yesterday. And Carson said, birds. And he says, all right, birds. Why do hummingbirds hum? Because they don't know the words. Carson laughs, everybody laughs, and I watched that and I said, I'm going to be able to do that only with dirty jokes
Yes.
someday. I swear to God that.
And
that
I
accent- and then of
Fashioned my career after Rosemary.
Did you really?
No.
course, no, but it's so funny because you
If
don't
you
realize
had, that
If
would've-
I had-
she was wonderful.
She was.
The light bulb doesn't go on. You think that's so cool. The guy has a joke for anything. But meanwhile, 2 seconds before they go on, Johnny, I'm going to do a joke on anything, you say birds.
Of
Of course.
course.
But you don't realize that when you watch. And years later,
No.
I was on the Bill Boggs comedy.
Yep.
Oh,
Tonight.
hey, was there. I did
And
that.
So we're on commercial
Joe
break. and
Franklin,
Boggs
all the
says,
big names.
You got jokes on anything, you want me to give you a subject? I said, okay, so we get back to commercials. And he said, Jackie, you got a joke on anything? I said, give me a suggestion. And he said, hospital, because I had told him to say hospital.
Yeah.
And of course,
Oh,
I had
now
a
you're
joke for it.
shattering
And
all
then I was like,
illusions.
I got
Shattering.
douche chills because, well, that's cheating.
It's
It's
cheating.
like Mickey Mantle flying in a helicopter and dropping the ball into the center field.
You know what the
bleachers,
great
you know.
Robert Klein used to do? Something called Make a Song, where call out a song title and then he'd make the song.
Make up a blues song.
And he had his piano player with him.
Right, and he had he played the harp to
tunes.
the.
No, and he had to stop doing that in his act because he did it so well the audience thought it was set up.
Oh,
That's how good he was. Now explain
Yeah.
to the audience, and I want to get to Joan.
Of
'cause
course,
Joan,
that's Klein's version of the story.
Now, Stump the Joke Man was
Yeah.
where the audience would give you a setup and you would get the punchline, and you would virtually never get stumped.
No, but I would. But that was such a
But
ridiculous bit because I used to have the guys stand up in place, and I almost always knew the joke. But I have the girls come on stage, so of course I'm making fun of their boobs and their ass. It's so politically incorrect; it was off the charts.
Hello.
But they all knew. they all knew when they came on stage what was going to happen.
Right.
There wasn't any surprises. But what was so great was every time I answered right, the crowd went nuts. But when I got stumped by somebody, they went twice as crazy. So it was a no lose.
But you hardly ever
This
got
is-
stumped.
This is why we look at car accidents. It's the reason we, You know, we can't turn away. Oh,
Joe,
it's
I was
bad.
on
but
stage at Rascals, and a girl asked me a Jewish joke. And it was such a simple setup, I could not believe that it wasn't in my brain. And this is the Rascals Comedy Hour. I used to tape Stump the Joke Man after
Yeah.
Rascals Comedy Hour.
Okay.
And the girl says, why do they bury Jewish guys standing up? And I didn't know. And I said, okay, you win. I don't know. And she said, to keep the change from falling out of their pockets. And I said,
That's
listen
so
to this,
wrong.
listen to this. I said to the girl, I can't believe that is so funny and so silly and so, I can't believe I didn't know that.
Exactly.
And she said, I can't believe it either, because I stumped you with that same joke 2 years ago on the same stage. So there goes the whole Jackie knows every joke thing.
Jackie
She
doesn't-
stumped me with the same joke. twice.
Jackie doesn't pay attention.
I was there one
I was
night.
looking at her boobs.
That's the problem. I was there one night.
Did you feel under her armpits? Because you
great.
used to
So
do that all
hairy.
the time.
Very
Jesus
hairy.
Terrible.
Christ.
I was
He
there
does
one
this.
night when he was stumped, and you'll pick it up. Somebody in the audience, it wasn't one of the ladies on stage, said, what goes up and down with no rhyme or reason? And I couldn't believe it was a great joke, and you got stumped. Do the punchline.
I used to do Nutrisystem on the Stern Show
Oh,
every couple of
yes, you
years
did.
because they needed somebody to be a flunky, and meanwhile it was good for me because I was so overweight, and I'd lose 20 pounds and they'd pay me money or whatever. And I was at Club Benet, 700 people, you couldn't move in the place, and in the back corner a guy yells, what goes down but always comes back up? And I'm like, and he goes, and he yells, your freaking weight. And the crowd, because the crowd was all
Wait.
Stern Show fans, so they're all in on
Stumped.
it.
Wow.
Free T-shirt.
It was just,
Free
it was
T-shirt.
just
That's
too
the
perfect.
T-shirt cannon
So,
coming out.
We have so many performers on this show. I like to ask because you're great and it goes so well every night. But I like to ask about the nights that it didn't go well. Like we're at the diner, comedians at the diner, like the
Yes.
bombing story.
Well,
Do
I
you have
remember
nightmares?
more of the bad than I remember the good.
Do you?
Oh, yeah. I
because
mean,
that's
I,
what
I got the high when I did really well. I love that
Yes,
high.
we all
But that
relate.
horrible, I did a King
Broder.
Roder thing in upstate New York.
May,
Rather-
may he not rest in peace.
Interesting booker, the comedians should
and
complain about.
just bombed.
Okay.
Friars,
So
Friar
bad.
Tuck?
It was some kind of lodge,
Friar
and
Tuck.
I just bit the big one, and I couldn't.
Couldn't do anything.
I couldn't
again.
dig myself out of it. And usually I'm really good, but I just couldn't. And then, you get the flop sweat, and you're like, never let them see you sweat, okay?
Comes up
it was
the back
bad.
of your
Never
neck.
did another gig for him.
Okay. You don't freeze in improvs.
No. And that was I started out doing a new joke. That I don't recommend to any comedian. So I started out, I'm driving up to this gig, and I've got the material ready to my head.
got a
I'm gonna
great
go up.
idea.
I've got the first clean new 5 minutes, and it just, first joke, bomb.
We've all been there.
Yes.
Did you ever
Not very often.
Did you ever have, everybody has had, especially performers have had the same nightmares. Like the nightmare where you're on stage and the curtain's about to open and you're like, nobody ever showed me a script.
Yeah,
Nobody,
yeah,
these
that's
crazy
that's
things.
called
Have
the
you ever been on
actor's nightmare.
stage
Yeah.
in a play and drawn the blank?
Oh yeah, I think everyone has. I think every actor has done that.
Or the person jumps ahead or gives you the wrong. The trouble with being on stage with another person is when they get it wrong, you're the one that looks like the idiot because they're not passing you the right ball.
Well, yes. I've had actors who completely blow it and turn to me and go, What do you have to say for yourself? Okay, you're going to make me the fall guy. But that's where the improvisation comes in.
And when it's Shakespeare, they say, "Madam, I am
Yes,
bereft of words."
Yes,
You know,
I am
it's-
bereft
so it
of
fits,
words.
you know.
Shakespeare's fun to make up, let me tell
Oh,
You know, when I was in the two-man band and we'd play songs and tell jokes, and if I was doing something and I was doing terribly, I would just turn to him. And the whole
you. That's what you
whole-
don't have that opportunity in stand-up.
No.
You have that in improvisation, and you have that, of course, in acting, in the theater, and having the other
lots
actors.
right. You know, I tell this story a bunch of times on the show. I don't care. Nelson was on stage in Fort Lauderdale, and he's killing. Bob Nelson, who does, juggles balloons, and he uses props, but he's brilliant. And this two-man group, Mac and Jamie, were on the show too, and they're standing there, and as Nelson's killing, they're like, "Well, that's crap. Look at that,
Hack,
you've got all
sure.
this garbage. That's ridiculous."
Sure.
Blah blah blah. And I just said, "Listen, you guys, not for nothing. He uses props. If you're on stage, what is the single greatest prop you can have? That's another human being. And you two guys go up there with the two of you, which is the
you're
old.
right.
You can turn
Yeah.
to the other
Did you
guy.
do it in that angry
go
voice?
up on your own by your own damn self, and you know what I mean.
Well, the other guy's the prop. Those are
Right,
The
right.
prop
John,
or
this
the
is going
crutch.
to crack you up. There was a manager at the comic strip in Fort Lauderdale, and let Jackie finish this story, named Joe Mullen.
Did
and
I
he
work there?
had-
I think I remember
Did-
Joe
and
Mullen.
he had to fire an act, and he had to do it because they were not doing well.
We've told this story so many
Have-
times,
I don't-
and I
have
will
we-
never get sick of this
I will
story.
never get sick of this story. And they kept pressing him. Well, why? Why are you firing? Why? And he finally.
No, they didn't get he was firing him. He called them in the office and he said, "I think you should go home." And they're like, no, Joe, we only been here a week. We're booked for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He said, nah, you should
You're
pack
done.
up and you go. And they weren't getting it, right? That's
They
just
were
what-
not getting it.
They're in his office because he told the story later. And he said to him, all right, they backed him into a corner. He said, all right, let me tell you something. If you's ever, this was a two-man group, a man, a guy and his wife, and they went on stage and they were horrible. And I forget I know their name. I'm not going to say it.
I don't think so.
Because they're probably still doing it.
Yeah, they're
badly
probably
somewhere.
watching.
But he said, he's from the Bronx. He's
Yeah.
5'3", and he's from the Bronx, and he's wiry, and he's a pisser. He goes, you aren't getting it, but do yourself a favor. If you are ever offered a job at the post office, you should take it. Because when you two walk on that stage, you're trespassing. I can't think of a worse insult to a performer.
I got.
And he said that was off the top of his head. That wasn't a pre-arranged.
I got booked in Fort Walton Beach, where the Air Force bases are, and I got booked in a strip club. And it was a female strip, but I was like, oh, okay, I've never done it. And I was so Midwest. I was like, doing my bits. And the guy comes up, come here. You're terrible, you suck, get the fuck out. And I'm sorry, I don't know if
That's fine.
But I was like, give me another chance. Just give me another chance, I promise. So I went up there and I was the filthiest, grossest, most disgusting person I've ever seen and got the gig.
That's
Got the gig. I got my $600 for the week.
Oh, but it sounds to me like you are now an actress and you love
Yes.
live theater and
she's still filthy.
Still filthy. I was always a little bit too dirty for
But I
a
mean,
TV.
you enjoy live theater. That's more than
Yes,
anything else.
yes.
Even as much as you love improv and stand-up, live theater is.
Absolutely, because you're
Okay.
you're
Did you
a
plug?
different
Did
character.
she plug?
Yeah, we want to plug you.
Oh.
Where are you going to be? You've got a great role. You told me before.
I am doing at the Studio Theater in Lindenhurst, Long Island.
All right.
Original play called Frank Sinatra. It's opens March 24th through April 9th. It is about an Italian family that's obsessed with Frank Sinatra. So It's very relatable.
It's a
It's
very,
very
very
funny.
realistic premise, I think.
Very realistic.
And you play someone older than yourself.
I play an 86-year-old woman named Aunt Gert. So I sit in the corner with the rosary beads, and I have a zinger like every 3 pages.
All right, well, that's a perfect role for you.
Exactly.
And you know, there's probably a few Italians on Long Island that might show up for that show.
That's true.
You never know.
Let's
and not to mention the Jews that are
let's
trying to
hope
pass
it.
themselves off as
Yes,
Italians.
well, of course, they all do that.
That's vintage Jackie right
That's
there.
vintage Jackie.
Joan,
Yes.
you are terrific. You have been as long as I've known you in everything you've done, stand-up, improv, and live theater.
Live theater. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you so much for coming on.
We will be
podcast.
having you back.
Delightful.
Oh, we
will be
want
having
more
you
Joan
back.
St. Onge.
Oh, thank you, guys.
And
The problem is that she's our last guest at today's taping, which means we probably have to invite her
Have
to come
to
to
drink.
dinner with us. Luckily, it's your turn to pay.
oh, you think so?
Actually, I do have rehearsal after.
She has
I
rehearsal.
guess it's my turn to pay.
Oh,
Yeah, now
see,
it's your turn to
now-
pay when I have rehearsal.
Ladies and gentlemen,
You were
thank
great.
You,
Thank
were
you,
terrific. And Jackie, you were Jackie.
Thank you. I have so many more stories, though.
Oh, we want more.
No, and we will do more. We will
Backed by
do more.
popular demand. Thank you, Joan St. Onge. Thank you, of course,
Thank you for having me, guys.
Jackie the Joke Man Martling. I am Peter Bales, and we'll see you next time on Stand Up Memories.
Sure. That was a pretty good episode.
A new episode every Wednesday with me, Peter Bales, Jackie the Joke Man Martling, comedians, interesting people. Leave a comment. We'll get. What am I saying?
I don't know.
We're gonna get back to you. We will respond to your comment.
StandUpMemories.com, if you go there, it shows all the different
Oh,
platforms.
Spotify, we're on everything.
Every Wednesday.
Stand Up Memories,
Every Wednesday.
a new episode.